right, thank you very much, Dr. Craig, for the introduction. And I'm actually very excited to present this webinar to all of you. I hope you are excited as well. So technically, thank you so much to Dr. Craig for inviting me again to present on this webinar entitled Poster Presentations. And Dr. Craig has already basically told all of you about my background. So basically, I'm just going to say that my name is Dr. Hui Chi Mei. My Chinese name is Hui Chi Mei, and my English name is Esther. So I'm affiliated to the Faculty of Creative Industries, University Tunku Abdul Rahman, in short is UTA, and this is situated in Sungai Long, Selangor, Malaysia. All right, so without further ado, let me start off with the presentation, yeah? Okay. Okay, so I hope the slide is in the next slide, yeah? I hope it's changing. If not, please do let me know, because I might not know and the internet is quite slow at my area, yeah? Okay, so let me start off by asking all of you on this part. I believe all of us know what is a poster, right? Normally, a poster is like a notice, right? Basically like an announcement of an event to publicize something, or maybe to actually advertise or promote a product or even service, right? So this poster is a form of placard, right? So usually it's a large printed notice with pictures and implies a message or ideas that you want the audience to know, all right? So poster is normally a large printed placard or announcement that is often illustrated to advertise and publicize something. It can be a term of event, it can be a term of activities and so forth. However, when it comes to poster presentation, it's a different thing altogether. All right, so what is a poster presentation, or what does it mean for you if you have to do a poster presentation? Now, this is the part where when it comes to a poster presentation, it means that you are presenting your research in a form of a poster. It's technically harder to present this because you need to actually plan and organize the details and information to be included on the poster, and that is quite hard. So that is why we need to know what to include, what not to include, and what to state when you want to present your research across to the audience. So this is where you create a poster with information about your research. And in this part, normally for postgraduate students, for masters and PhD, together with like maybe FYP students, final year students, usually there will be a mentor or supervisor to help and guide you to do the necessary. However, we have some people like us, like Dr. Craig and myself, we have already graduated from a PhD program. And let's say we want to keep ourselves updated to know what to present on when it comes to our poster. We might want to actually read on the relevant materials, resources, or maybe find some samples, good samples of a good poster, yeah, and how to present on your research across. So I think if let's say you are on LinkedIn, Dr. Craig has been posting a lot of materials in the Third Degree platform to actually talk about this poster part, yeah. And that's all the resources that he posted. That's very useful for us to take note as well. Okay, so normally in a poster presentation, there is a place where you will have to hang your poster up at a conference, right? There is a venue or a location that we need to find out in order for us to actually know where is the presentation held, okay? Do bear in mind, when it comes to a poster presentation, based on your experience, it's not only done individually. In a conference setting, normally there will be paper presentations, or you can say that this could also be oral presentations, and the poster presentation would be done concurrently. So this is where, and comes to the conference setting, it does not mean that only poster presentation is done. Yeah, it can be other things as well. Okay, so that is why we need to know where is the venue, where is the location, in order for us to be prepared and not to be nervous as we present our research across. Okay, so this is the part, the last point there on the slide itself. This is where you present the poster to the people in attendance, not at the people, but to the people. And this is why when we want to talk to the people and discuss with the people regarding the research, and this is where when we look at the poster, we have to relate to the audience as well. All right, so that is actually the hard part when you want to present your poster across. However, through practices, through a lot of rehearsals, and through the supervision or guidance from your supervisors or your mentors, it will be easily done. Okay, and this will be the part where you have to practice a lot. Okay, Following that, okay, so let me now draw your attention to the goals of poster presentations. Why do we present the poster? Okay, so normally poster presentations are used in academia to promote and explain the research work typically shown during conferences. This will normally be done in a conference setting, and this is where we want to sell or promote our research to others to let them know why our research is significant. Why is it important to be done? And that is why when it comes to the organization and the planning to put the details on the poster, a lot of things and a lot of organization needs to be done. Okay, so this is where when it comes to the poster presentations, they will stimulate interest and discussion. Earlier on, when Dr. Craig talked about poster presentation, when he talked about background about this is where there's a lot of feedback, one-to-one feedback and discussion with the presenter. So this will be the part where you have the one-to-one interaction between the presenter and the attendees or participants in the conference. Now, this will help to stimulate interest, especially when it comes to your poster that are attractive. If let's say your posters are not attractive enough, it will not stimulate interest and discussion. Yeah. And lastly, poster presentations generate context. This is important, especially if we say you want to have a future research with other people, other researchers from the same area as you, right? And maybe you want to have future collaborations. So this is where when you have poster presentations, they will actually generate context to have future collaboration with others. So this will be the part of why we actually present our poster in the conference setting. Now, following that, okay, so this is the part where I'm now going to draw your attention of the process of poster designing. Earlier on, I mentioned it's hard to actually know what to include and what not to include and how to organize and so forth, right? Which I'm going to explain later on. But before that, we need to know about the process of designing and creating the poster. Firstly, we need to formulate and articulate our ideas. So this is where we want to know what to include. And normally when it comes to any presentation, we want to include the introduction of our research. We also want to include the methodology. How do we carry out our research? And we also want to include the results as well as the significance of our research. So this will be the part where we need to organize and formulate together to make sure that your ideas and our ideas will be conveyed across clearly. All right. So this is the part where we have to brainstorm and know the details to be included on the poster. Secondly, this is where we need to know our target audience. This is important because as we want to relate to the audience, as we speak to them, instead of speaking at them, we have to engage them, right? So that is why when we want to do the necessary presentation, we need to know the level of the audience. We need to know the audience. And how do we do that? We get to know the details from the conference organizers, right? And that is when we will try to explain our research in a simple manner to others. Take for instance, my area is from the English language, and my area is more towards meta discourse. And normally when I want to actually explain to people about meta discourse, normally people will think it's mental discourse. And it's nothing about mental discourse because actually meta discourse is about language features. So that is why, how do I actually make others understand my research area better? This is where I will need to give a lot of illustration, explanation, and examples. So that is why we need to know our audience to engage to them because we are speaking to them, yeah, so that they will get more understanding and knowledge about our research. So that is important for us to know our target audience as well, all right? And lastly, what do we want to achieve with the poster? This is important because when we want to create a poster, we want the objectives of the poster presentation to be conveyed. If let's say you just basically create a poster, and if it's not properly done, it will cause a lot of confusion to the participants or the audience. So that is why we need to actually plan accordingly to see whether this creates an impact to the audience. We do not want the audience to go back empty-handed after looking at our poster and watching our presentation. right? So that is why we want the audience to get back some inputs, after attending to our presentations. Okay, following that. All right, so let me now draw your attention of the layout of a poster. Now, this is where we need to actually know how to create a visual sequence. What do I mean by that? This is where we need to actually organize accordingly or order accordingly the visuals that we want to include in our poster, right? Normally, when it comes to visuals, they will be in the form of images, pictures. It can be graphs, pie charts, or tables. So that is why we need to know the order or the sequence of these visuals to make sure that the audience will actually understand what you intend to portray through your poster. Okay, so that is why when we want to do the necessary, we also need to bear in mind that we do not need to fill every inch of white space of the poster. Why do I say so? Now, through the experience, when I attended some conferences and when I went for the poster presentations, I saw some posters that were very overcrowded with a lot of words and not many images or visuals. And that will be the part that is too overcrowded with words, too congested, until I do not see any space in the poster. So when I actually attended some poster presentations, I got very confused of the poster itself. And the presentation-wise was good, but the poster was very confusing, right? So that is where we need to remember when we want to actually design the poster, we need to make sure that the first impression counts. So that's why we need to have some gap and space in the poster as well. Yeah, we do not want to crowd everything with the visuals, with the text and everything else. Okay, next, this is where we also need to use 2 to 3 main colors. Now, please remember, as we want to create a poster, we do not want to distract the audience with a lot of colors. If you put too many colors, like rainbow colors, 7 colors, it will be so distracting to the point that you do not know what is the focus of the poster. What is the objective of this poster, right? So normally it will be advisable to use 2 to 3 main colors in order to make the poster clear enough for the audience to understand. Okay, following that, this is where we need to be consistent, especially when it comes to the color for the headings. So normally in a poster, we have 5 important details that we want to include. Firstly, it will be the introduction, all right, which I'm going to address later on. Secondly, it will be about the methodology. Thirdly, it will be about the results. And then we have the conclusion, and then we have the references. Now, these will be the part of the headings. Now, this is where when you want to highlight to the audience or the participants of the important headings, we want to synchronize the color. So take, for instance, if the headings are in blue color, so we put all the headings, the 5 headings that I mentioned earlier on, in blue. And if let's say there are subheadings, we might want to use another color, maybe purple. And normally in the text itself, it will be in black. All right. So that is why we want to be consistent in the coloring so that it will not confuse the audience who come to your presentation. All right. Next, this is where we also need to determine the logical sequence for materials. So when we want to use the materials in order to gather the information and the details to be put on the poster, that is why we need to know which ones are important, which ones are not important. Sometimes along the way, we will need to remember that too much of everything is not good, or too less of everything is also not good. It should be a balance of everything, all right? It cannot have all the important information too overcrowded with pictures and text all together. So that is why we need to actually sequence logically the materials and the details that we want to include in our poster. Following that, in the next part itself, this is why we also need to organize the details into sections. So early on, I mentioned 5 sections. So we need to organize the details accordingly in the different sections as well. Following that, we would need to also give number to the sections for making the flow oblivious or clearer. Now, normally, when we want to do a poster, logically, we will start our sections from left to right, from the top to the bottom. But sometimes, some presenters would want to make it unique. They would like to put it maybe to left, to right, to left, or bottom to top. It depends accordingly because they want to make it unique to attract the attention of the participants, right? So that is when, at times when you want to do the necessary, if you want to be something that you want to stand out from the extraordinary, we need to put a number so that it will sequence your sections accordingly. Now, sometimes along the way, there will not be any numbers, but you might have arrows to sequence. So then the participants will follow your ideas accordingly when they look at your poster, right? And lastly, this is where we also want to arrange the details into columns, right? So this is where, like, normally it comes to columns, you know, when we want to have a poster, there will be columns and there will be rows, right? So that is where we need to arrange accordingly what to be included and what not to be included. This is the part where we need to think logically as a researcher. If let's say you are a PhD student right now, or even a master's student, or whoever who wants to embark your journey into a postgraduate journey, this is where we will think as a researcher, what to do and what not to do, what to include and what not to include. So that is why if let's say you are not so well-versed with all this, we might want to have other peers, maybe those experts to help us accordingly. If you have a supervisor, if you're a mentor, you would want them to check your poster as well, because you wouldn't want to have a dull and plain poster and nobody will actually come to your booth when you want to present your poster if it's not attractive enough. Okay, now following that. Okay, so what do you actually include in your poster? What are the poster contents? Firstly, is your title. Now, your title of your research will need to be included. That is the first thing that you need to include. Okay, the second thing that you need to include, it will be your author, your name. You are the author, you are the researcher. Okay, and also this is where we need to put in the affiliations. Important to be mentioned, because at times, maybe if let's say there are different authors from different institutions and they are working with you in a project, you will want to put their affiliations in. All right, this is important because yeah, you don't want to basically acknowledge your authors or the researchers in the team. Okay, following that, so we have the introduction, and then we have the methods, we have the data and results, with the conclusion and future work, and lastly, we have the references and acknowledgements. I'm going to address all these accordingly in the next few slides, yeah? So, and last, the part where it comes to the part of references and acknowledgements, it does not mean that you need to include the whole list of references, because I believe when we want to do a research or conduct a research, we have a list of references, right? So when we have a list of references, we do not include all these on the poster, it'll be so crowded, right? So what I mean by these references, maybe you can include 1 or 2 main references that support your research, all right? And then we have the acknowledgements as well. Now, just now, Dr. Craig introduced me that I spearheaded some research grants, all right? And this is where I will need to acknowledge these research grants that supported the study. If not, this is not good for us not to acknowledge them, right? And also, if let's say there are students or participants who are involved in our study, we will also want to give some acknowledgement to them as well. All right, so these will be the things that will be included in the poster. I will going to address all these accordingly in the next few slides. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's look at the poster text. Firstly, keep it short and simple. And if let's say you want to put an abbreviation of it, KISS, K-I-S-S, not to kiss, but to keep it short and simple. All right, so this is where earlier on, I mentioned that you should not write too much or you should not write too little, right? You just need to be short and simple. What do I mean by this? Normally, when I teach my students, basically this semester, I teach my students a lot of writing courses, 2 writing courses, and normally my students are young adults, all right? So basically what I tell my students is that please don't be long-winded like a grandfather or a grandmother. Don't write too much. All right, and also don't write too little. If you write too little, you are a teenager. Nobody will understand you. Please be a young adult like right now. You are a young adult, right? So that's why you need to have it short and simple to make sure that your keywords, your ideas, the main points are mentioned in the text. You wouldn't want to overcrowd your poster with a lot of words, with a lot of visuals, and distract the audience when they are there to look at your poster. Okay, so keep it short and simple, please. Number 2, remove all the non-essential information. Now, a lot of information will need to be included, but let's say there are examples, a lot of visuals that are not so important to be included. We would like to remove them. Okay, it's not to put all. It's like I said, not too much or everything is not good. Okay, so that's why we need to have our thinking cap as a researcher to know what to include and not. If there are examples, you need to exclude them. Okay, number 3, this is where we want to attract the visual attention and use graphics. All right, so normally that is why when it comes to the poster, we will want to use graphics. We will want to use tables. Maybe you want to use pie charts or graphs, right? We want to attract the attention from the audience. So that's why we don't want to put too many words. So you want to put the visuals in. So number 4 there is a format that I would advise. And I also normally will use this when I create a poster. This is where we can use this formula. Try for 20% of text, okay? 40% of graphics and 40% of empty space. This is where you want to use the words, right? You make sure it's 20% of the text, okay? And not many graphics. It means that it does not mean that for your poster itself, you have a lot of graphics with no words, right? So you have to have the words, we have to have the graphics, and we have space as well, so that when our audience look at your poster, they will understand accordingly what is your important information on the different sections. Okay, so that is where it's advisable to have 20% text, 40% graphics, and 40% empty space. Okay, then the next one is where I would advise all of you to avoid using italics in your poster. Why do I say so? Normally, when you read italicized words that are italics, I hope you know what italics are. Yeah? Sometimes when you read this text, when it's in italics, it's very hard to be read. Your eyes have to turn somewhere, somewhere to read it, and it's very hard to be read. So it's not advisable to use italics in your poster. Now, maybe you would like to actually emphasize on certain words or keywords in your text. So maybe what you could do is that you can bold the words or maybe change the color of the text, yeah, so that you can see accordingly what is it all about. Okay, and lastly, this is why we want to use bulleted points rather than graphics as well. What do I mean by that? Now, early on, remember number 4, 20% text, 40% graphics, 40% empty space, right? So this is where we do not want to put too much of graphics, right? So that's where we want to use text. So when you want to put the text in, that is where we would like to use bulleted points. Points that are important. You do not want to copy exactly the whole paragraph to be chunked on the poster, and that is where it's very confusing. All right, so that's why it's advisable to use bulleted points rather than graphics for that part. Okay, now following that. Okay, so now let me draw your attention to the poster title, which is the most important, because I know that when it comes to graphics, they are important because visuals are important. They will attract the people to your booth. At the same time, your poster title must be impressive and interesting. Okay, so take for instance, for my research area is meta discourse, which I highlighted earlier on. A lot of people will think it's mental discourse. And right now I keep on saying it's not mental, but it's meta discourse, which is related to language features, yeah? So that is why when I want to make my research interesting, what is meta discourse is actually to emphasize on writers' authority and readers' engagement, okay, through writing. So that is when I want to make sure that the title is interesting enough, I would mention engaging the text to the readers, something like that. So that is where it will make your title more interesting. And another research that I did was about meta discourse in writing. So that is where, you know, when I use meta discourse is to combat misinterpretation in the text when it comes to writing. So what could I do? What is an interesting title? So that is where I can use like Mortal Kombat. And if, I don't know whether you know Mortal Kombat. Yeah, so I use Mortal Kombat to combat misinterpretation in writing, something like that. So that is where it will attract the audience to your research through this interesting title. Make it catchy, all right? Make sure that your title is not long, too long, until nobody will actually understand what is your research about. Now, pay attention to the title of your poster because it's not the same as the title of your thesis. I understand when it comes to the title of your thesis, it's a different thing altogether. You need to put in the variables, you need to put in the constructs, everything is there, very clearly stated. But when it comes to the poster, it's a different thing altogether because maybe in your research for your thesis, you are actually highlighting maybe 4 research questions or 4 research objectives. But when it comes to the poster, maybe you only want to highlight 1 research objective only or 1 research question. So that is why when it comes to the title itself, it will only need to highlight on this 1 research objective or research question. All right. So that is why the title does not follow exactly the title of your thesis. All right. So that is why we need to make it interesting enough because normally before the conference organizing committee accepts your poster presentation, they will look at your title, they look at your abstract to see whether this is relevant to the conference or not. So that is why we need to make it interesting as well. Okay. Next, this is also important for the title to be able to lure people from a distance. So visuals will grab the attention. Title will make it more interesting. Okay, so when you look at the title, well, you can see that your research is something very eye-catchy. Yeah, so that they will come to your booth to look at your and to watch your presentation. All right, so make sure your title is big enough. It and has different colors, you know, so and in order for them to understand what is your research about. Okay, next one. So it's the same as what I mentioned, should be easy to read from 10 feet distance. So when you look at the thing, you can see that is the title of your poster and should not be too long. Like what I said earlier on, please don't write too long. If let's say you have a poster title that is about more than 15 words, it's very confusing what you intend to do, right? So make it short, okay? Now, following that, these will be the colors to be used for your poster. Make sure when you want to use background color, make sure you use 1 background color to unify the poster, okay? This is where I would advise all of you to use muted color, meaning to say this will be the light color, not dark colors, okay? Don't use dark colors until you cannot see anything, all right? And you don't use so bright colors like maybe if it's red color or even yellow colors, so striking to the extent that we cannot understand. It's so striking, it might just blind your eyes, you know, as you look at the poster, right? So stick to muted color or maybe just plain color, yeah? Or yeah, plain color. This is also important for you to take note that red-green combination is a no-no. Please avoid using red-green combination because this red-green blindness is very common. So striking, your eyes will be blinded, okay? And lastly, do not overuse the color and be consistent. So earlier on, I mentioned when it comes to the headings of your poster, you will want to follow it consistently. If it's about the heading, you might want to put in the same color, subheading, same color, the text will normally in black. Okay, so that is why we need to play around with this. Make sure this poster is attractive enough for others to come to your booth. If they don't come to your booth, that is very depressing, right? So that is why we need to actually know what to do and what not to do as a researcher. Okay, following that. Okay, so this is the part where I'm going to draw your attention on the poster session. Okay, so normally academic or research posters typically presented at poster sessions will have this. These are very common in any type of conferences, especially regardless whether you are from the sciences or from the social sciences, yeah? So normally the number of people in attendance will vary accordingly, okay? And what do I mean by that? Let me now draw your attention to this part. Now, this is where, when it comes to the poster section itself, if you have not attended any poster presentation, normally when you attend a poster presentation, you will see the presenters with the poster hung or pasted on the poster board or on the board, right? So that is where the presenters will normally need to be ready. They need to be early to make sure that they actually attach or maybe hang the poster board on a specific day or a time. Okay, so this will depend on the conference guidelines, and that is why it's important for us, if let's say we are accepted for a poster presentation, we need to see the guidelines of the conference, what we need to do in order to put and paste or maybe hang our poster at the booth, all right? And normally, stationery will be provided. Pushpins will be provided, but not always. So we will need to bring our stationery there as well, either to hang it or to paste the poster on the poster board or on the wall, okay? Now, this is where when during the presentation itself, I would like to advise all of you to look up on the conference details. That's the important thing, because when you want to present in a presentation, if let's say we do not look up on the conference details, we do not know how long are we given to present on the poster, firstly. How long are we supposed to be there during the poster presentation? What do I mean by that? Because at times when you want to present your poster, it does not mean that you need to be there for the whole day. Sometimes it's maybe from 2 to 4 p.m. that you need to be there, okay? So that is when maybe your presentation is actually from 2 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. But you need to be there from 2 to 4 p.m. because maybe at that period of time for that presentation, there will be a group of panelists or maybe the judges who will be there during your presentation for the first 30 minutes, right? And then again, after they walk off, there will be other attendees or participants who are attracted to your poster, who would want to know about your research. They will come to your booth, and that's where we need to present our poster to them as well. We should not neglect them. So normally we'll be there throughout a period of time. From 2 to 4, we need to be there. So that is why we need to look up on the conference details on our presentation and so forth. So that is important for us to take note. There's a lot of times, a lot of people, they overlook this part. All right. So for the conference details, we will know our target audience. Earlier on, I mentioned about the target audience, right? So we need to know how to relate to them because we are talking to them instead of talking at them, right? So we need to engage to them to make sure whether they understand or not. So these conference details will help you accordingly on what to do during your presentation. Second, number 2, dress professionally. Okay, so this is where we need to dress to impress. We need to know that we need to be serious about our presentation. Why we do a poster presentation? Because we want to create an impact to the audience about our research. We want the audience to not be empty-handed after our presentation, right? So that is where we are serious. So if let's say we dress professionally and accordingly for the occasion, dress to impress, people will look at you and they can see the passion in you when you want to talk about your research. All right. So this is the part where, you are very serious about it. You want to show people about your poster and about your research. Number 3, be on time. It's important to be on time because remember, like what I said, we need to be there to get ourselves prepared to paste or hang our poster, right? And you need to know what to do, where's our location and so forth. So a lot of things we need to actually do beforehand, all right? So that's why we need to be on time. Because if not, if you are late or whatever it is, you'll be very nervous. Do not be at the venue at the exact time. For example, just now I gave the example of being there at 2 p.m. Your slot is at 2 p.m. and you'll be there at 2 p.m. to present. No, you will be very nervous because you have to actually prepare accordingly to stick your poster and whatever it is, right, before you present. So that is why we need to be early. Yeah, be early. Better be early than to be late, right? And lastly, bring water. So this is what it is. Right now, I think in Malaysia, it's a very hot weather right now. I'm not sure about the other countries, who are in the other countries. It's a very hot weather, yeah. And normally when it comes to the part of poster presentation, you are not only basically presenting it once, you are presenting it multiple times. You are not only presenting to a group of panelists or judges, like what I say. Maybe some passerbys pass to your booth, you will also want to present to them as well. So you talk a lot. You have to present a lot. We need to engage with the audience because there might be a feedback, interaction, discussion, done at a particular period of time. So bring your water because you do not want to get sore throat at the end of the day. Okay? Now, following that, Okay, so just now I mentioned when it comes to the poster presentation, it does not mean in a conference setting, it's only a poster presentation. The poster presentation might run concurrently with the oral or paper presentation, right? Okay, so this is where when it comes to a big conference, this is a scenario of a poster presentation in a big conference. You can see a lot of people there, and you can see a lot of booths with your poster. So you can see a lot of people are passing by here and there. Yeah, so this is the scenario of a poster presentation in a big conference. Now, this is another scenario of a poster presentation in a small conference. Okay, so that's where you can see this part itself is quite small. So you can see that they are here. Yeah, the booth of the poster presentations are here. Okay, now, why am I highlighting this to all of you is that sometimes along the way, we might see that we might attend big conferences, we might attend small conferences, right? Regardless of whether we are attending the big conferences or small conferences, we need to make sure share attendees. All right. So not, why is it there will be a big conference or small conference? Maybe in a big conference setting, there will be a lot of people. Maybe they are from the researchers. Maybe they are the educators. They are from the staff, academics. And then maybe they also are the students, postgraduate students. So this will be for the big conferences. Maybe for small conference, it's only cater for researchers, or maybe cater for postgraduate students. That's why there will be big conferences and small conferences setting. All right. So like what I said, regardless of whether it's the poster presentation of a big conference or a small conference, we will want to also make sure that whatever that we present will be conveyed to clearly to the audience. This is because we do not want the audience to not understand whatever that we want to present. Okay, so these are the scenarios of a poster presentation in the big and small conferences, yeah? Okay, following that, now, so let me now draw your attention to the statistics of poster and oral presentations in Malaysia. I believe it might be the same or it might not be the same. Okay, so first one, in big conferences, there will be about 200 oral presentations and 50 poster presentations. All right, so normally there will be a quota, right, for oral or paper presentations together with poster presentations, right? That will be for big conferences. Now, in small conferences, there will be about 100 oral presentations and 20 poster presentations. So like what I said earlier on, they might not only be poster presentations, there will also be oral or paper presentations together. All right. So normally this will be the quota stated to them. All right. However, at times, due to some space and time constraints on presenting all accepted articles, it is not possible to present all the accepted articles orally, yeah, in the oral presentation or in the paper presentation. And therefore, some articles are accepted as posters. Why? Because of these statistics, right? The statistics given here. So at times, when you see that they sometimes along the way, if let's say there are not enough poster presentation, or maybe there are too many presentations about the oral presentations. So that is where, due to the time constraint or whatever it is, the organizing committee of the conference might ask you to change your presentation to poster presentation. Before doing that, they will ask for your feedback, whether you are okay for it to do it. If let's say you're not okay, then you need to tell them, yeah? So it's very common, the situations that are happening in Malaysia. It didn't happen to me, but it happened to some of my colleagues and friends who actually presented in the same conference as me. They sent the abstract for the oral presentation, but it got accepted as a poster presentation. All right. And that is where the organizing committee will need to ask the feedback about it. Okay. So it does not mean that if, let's say, your paper presentation is accepted as a poster presentation, it means that your research is not of quality. No, the organizing committee, they do not actually mean to degrade your research. It's not like, oh, I cannot present for the oral presentation, means my research is not good, that's why it's another poster presentation. No, it's not that. It means because of the problems and constraints that they face, that's why they were asked to change to poster presentation. Okay? So these are the things that are happening in Malaysia, especially when it comes to the presentations in the conference. Okay. Now, when it comes to the poster defense, this is where for number one, there will be one or more researchers that will present the poster. So if let's say, for example, you are the only one doing the research, then you will be the individual presenter. But if let's say there is a group of you researchers doing the research, then there will be more than one presenting the poster. Okay. Number two, this is where we need to be smiling and be inviting. Now, when it comes to defending our proposal, or could I say not proposal, poster, or to present your poster, this is where we want to make sure that when you want to present, we need to be friendly. We need to smile. Because if let's say we do not smile and we look so strict, so serious, people will be so scared to ask you questions and they might not be interested in your research. Because normally people will say, you know, we have a face problem, you know, people with a face problem, right? So that is why occasionally people do not want to ask questions. The attendees or participants would not want to ask questions, right? They are so scared. But then again, when we are friendly, when we smile, when we are inviting, people will ask us questions. They are curious about our research, right? Yeah, so that's why we need to be friendly towards them. Okay, number three, explain the content and answer the questions from people passing by. All right, so this is what it is. When we want to defend our poster, we would not only address the question posed by the judges or the panelists, we will also need to answer the question by the passerbys or the attendees as well. Okay, this will help to generate more contacts and collaboration in the future. Following that, number four, presentation time will vary accordingly. Yeah, it depends because at times there will be a large crowd of people coming to your booth. Sometimes there will be a small crowd. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, so that's why the presentation time will vary accordingly. And lastly, this is why we need to deal with feedback. Okay, this is important for us to actually know how to deal with feedback, or maybe sometimes there will be constructive criticism from the participants, or maybe the judges or the panelists. So this is where we need to know how to deal with feedback, right? They are, do remember the people who are there in the conference, they are not there to basically attack you, but they would maybe want to give you suggestions or advice to improve our research further. So this is where we need to deal with feedback accordingly during the poster defense. Now, following that, so this will be the part where I'm going to draw your attention to the tips to defend your poster defense, yeah? So this will be the part where after the oral presentations, the attendees or participants are free for 30 minutes normally to eat something. That will be a refreshment time, right? Break time. And usually during this time, they go to the hall where the posters are placed. So presenters will stand near their posters to answer the viewers' questions. So like what I said, at that period of time when there are oral presentations, there are also the poster presentations, right? So when they are done during the oral presentations, they will come and visit the booth. So that is why the presenters will need to be near the poster in order to answer accordingly, right? The questions posed by the attendees. So this is where we need to be welcoming. And then that is where the elevator pitch needs to be used. And this is what do I mean by elevator pitch? This is where we need to pitch our research, right? You know, sometimes along the way, when we go to the shopping mall, there will be a lot of salesmen. They would like to introduce their product, pitch about their product, right? The sales and so forth. This is the same thing altogether. We want to sell and promote our research to others. So how do we pitch and elevate this research of ours? So how do we do that? Normally, we need to create a story. So normally, in order for them to get attracted to our research, we need to tell them a story, right? Give a story. And from the story, when it attracts the attention, that is where we talk about our presentation regarding the poster, the introduction and at the end, right? So that is where we need to actually practice a lot. The importance of practicing. Because if, let's say, we do not practice, we do not know what to say. Maybe for the first time, when we want to talk about the poster presentation, when we want to talk about it, we might stutter accordingly. But through practices from time to time, as you present from one time to another time to a group of people, to a more group of people, you will build your confidence level as we speak, right? So that is why we need to practice accordingly. Then there is also the part where we need to check the audience's understanding as well. This is because at times, sometimes we might talk too fast, right? So you might not know the audience whether they understand you or not. So that's why we need to ask for their feedback. Like, for example, are you following me? Do you need me to explain more? Do I need to give you more examples or whatever? Something like that to get their understanding, whether they understand the research or not. Okay. And then importantly, dress for the occasion. All right. And then there's the part where we need to have the handout. At times, in order for the participants or maybe the judges or the panelists who are there, we might want to distribute handouts to them in order for them to follow accordingly about the poster. At times also, if you realize, I'm based on experience, when I went for the poster presentation, I see some QR codes. Right now, QR codes are very common. Yeah, so you can still scan the QR code. So instead of handouts, you can scan the QR code and you can see the handout, meaning about the flow of your research to make your audience understand what is the research about. Yeah, so that's why it's important also. If not, then maybe you can use QR code like what I said. Yeah, if you want to save the environment, right? You do not want to print out the handouts. Okay. And like what I said, we need to deal with feedback accordingly. All right. Whatever feedback that they give, whether it's good or not, yeah, we need to know how to deal with this feedback. Okay. So during the poster defense, so this is the scenario there. So normally people in attendance may stop by and look at your poster. So this is a scenario, a real scenario, okay, that I captured. Okay, so normally when they come, we need to greet them and offer to explain our research. Okay, so then there's the part where some will let us walk them through the poster. All right, so then explain accordingly. So that's where we are able to actually do this in 5 to 6 minutes. So that's why we need to practice, walk them through our research about from the poster. But some of them may want to read whatever that you have done in the poster first. And then later on, they will ask you questions. All right, so there are some people who are like that. So that is why we need to be there to be ever ready to answer accordingly based on what they have to ask, yeah, accordingly. So this is where we need to be friendly to them and to be able to present our research to them from the poster. Okay. So then this is the part where we need to be prepared to answer the questions about our research. Why are we doing this? What is the importance of doing this research? Why does it matter? That is why we are doing this poster defense or poster presentation, yeah, to answer the questions. Sometimes it's not easy to be planning everything to be put on a poster, right? So when hopefully throughout the presentation itself, it will make sure that the people who attended your presentation, they will be clear about your research accordingly. Now, this will be the part where the questions the poster should answer. Number one, what is my poster presentation about? Okay, so normally that's where we need to plan accordingly. That's the introduction, the methodology, we have the results, we have the conclusion, and the acknowledgements, right? So this is where you want to actually ask the question. When you do the poster, these are the questions that you should answer. Okay, number two, why am I conducting this research? So normally we would want to put our research objectives or research questions there as well, so that the audience will understand, oh, this is what it is that you're going to do. Okay, number three, what materials and methods did I use? So this is the part where the data collection or the analysis part, how do you do it? So that's where you need to include accordingly. That will be for your poster. Number four, what are my results? So these results will be in the form, either in the form of the table or pie chart, graph, or maybe visuals. Okay. Number five, what conclusion did I make? Are there any conclusions that I made based on from the poster? And number six, what are my recommendations? Okay, are there any limitations in your research? If they are, what are your recommendations? So these will be the questions that the poster should answer as you plan and put all these things on your poster. These are the questions that you need to address accordingly. Now, this will be the part where I'm going to draw the attention of the benefits of poster over oral presentation. Now, posters normally allow you to create strong visual components that may be more appropriate for your topic or discipline. Depending on format, may not be possible with oral presentation. What do I mean by this? Now, a lot of times, sometimes some research is maybe related to digital animation or graphic designs. There are a lot of visuals, right? So sometimes there are a lot of visuals and images to be placed. And normally this will be applicable for them. They put a lot of visuals because posters have a lot of visuals, right? And also text as well. Yeah. And it's not normally common in the oral presentation. But I do not mean that it does not mean that when you do a poster presentation, you are not allowed to do the oral presentation, right? It's just based on your preference, whether you want to do an oral presentation or a poster presentation, right? Okay. And the second point that posters normally allow one-to-one interaction and feedback and longer conversations, right? So this is where, because when it comes to oral presentation or paper presentation, normally we are given 20 minutes for the session. All right. So normally it's 50 minutes of presentation and 5 minutes of Q&A. And that's the part where the feedback and interaction will take place. It's only 5 minutes. And then you move on to the second presenter, third presenter, and so forth. So that will limit the feedback and interaction with the participants. However, for poster presentation, because it's outside in a different venue, right? And the passerbys or the attendees will pass by your booth, that is where they will ask you a lot of things, and you can give a one-to-one feedback, or you can give the interaction with them. Yeah, we will stimulate the discussion among them. So that is what I mean by you talk to the people rather than at them. Okay, so it does not mean also that if let's say you are doing a poster presentation or an oral presentation, any one of it is better. No, it's up to your preference whether you want to do an oral or poster. But for this webinar today, I'm just highlighting the importance of doing a poster presentation. Okay, so I think that's about it for today's presentation.